now my pleasure to introduce Otis Jennings. Otis is a member of the class of 1990. I've known Otis for 5 years as we've served on the Alumni Board together. But since I did not attend St. Mark's when Otis was here, I had to do a little bit of research on him. I asked questions of his former classmates and his teachers to make sure I understood the true essence of Otis. Otis entered St. Mark's in the 9th grade. He established himself as a brilliant math student, a 3-sport letterman. He earned the reputation as an intense competitor and a devoted friend. Teachers and fellow alumni quickly point out that the man knew how to have fun, whether it was in the classroom, on the football field, or on the second floor of the Green Library. J.T. Sutcliffe said it best. When one looks back at the contributions Otis made to our academic and extracurricular program while he was a marksman, one is tempted to wonder if a mistake hasn't been made. If the accomplishments of several students haven't erroneously been blended into Otis's profile. However, those of us who have had the joy of teaching him and learning from him know otherwise. JT sums it up when she shares a quote from his college recommendation. She wrote, "I've taught bright and wonderful students for over 20 years. I've found precious few that I felt so certain would make significant contributions to our world. Otis Jennings will leave his mark, and we will all be better for it." I think we will agree with JT's prediction after we get a glimpse into Otis and his experiences at St. Mark's. I'd like to introduce to you Otis Jennings, class of 1990.
Thanks. Earlier this year, I received a phone call from David Denny, Brian Hargrove, and Scott Jolly. I was nervous at first. I hadn't made my yearly contribution to St. Mark's yet. But unlike many of you, I'm not quite a big fish yet, and this was not a development call. They were calling about tonight, and they were really excited about tonight, and I got excited about tonight, and we started talking about how it was long overdue, and they invited me to be the speaker, and I got quiet. I got nervous, and they went on, and they kept talking, though. They kept, saying how appropriate it was for me to speak. And, I wasn't really paying, I think my ears shut down, too. I wasn't paying attention. I think somewhere in there, Brian Hargrove expressed his love for me. All of this was unnecessary, though, because I couldn't say no. And Brian, you had me at hello. So good evening. It is such a privilege to speak on behalf of the entire St. Mark's family in acknowledging St. Mark's most precious resource, its people. I am but one of the roughly 3,100 alumni, many of whom openly acknowledge the profound and lasting effect that teachers and staff have had on our educations, our development as men, and our successes in life. My goal tonight is to capture, through a few of my personal experiences, a sense of just how precious and special a place St. Mark's is as a result of its employees going above and beyond their already broadly defined job descriptions. Piece of unsolicited advice to tonight's organizers, though: the next time you have to choose a speaker for an event, make sure your choice upon learning of his selection does not become speechless, as I did for an extended period. This is indeed a humbling responsibility. On this night dedicated to celebrating the contributions of many to St. Mark's in general and to our educators specifically, I would be remiss not to acknowledge my first teachers, my parents, Otis and Lily Jennings. My father and I share many attributes. In particular, we think alike. We both require frequent creative outlets and stimuli. Fortunately for me, I have my research. There's no doubt that if Otis had had the educational resources and structures in place that I had, that he helped to provide for me, he would also be teaching, as I do, and surely working on projects much more important than mine. My mother has faithfully and enthusiastically supported every academic interest that I have ever pursued. However, she did express some apprehension about my matriculation to a certain private school on the other side of town. She's my biggest fan. Clearly, I'm a product of my parents. I have to apologize now, though, for not mentioning by name everyone at St. Mark's who has impacted my life. There are far too many, and my speech has already been cut in half by the powers that be. But hopefully, I will at least get to greet each one of you tonight and express my extreme gratitude. I was an 8th grader at Spence Middle School and coming into my own, successfully competing in math contests, completing a phenomenal growth spurt, and participating in organized sports for the first time. Life was pretty good. The biggest math contest that year, ceremoniously entitled Math Counts, was held at SMU. I placed 3rd that day behind Jeff Quillisi and James Jones. I rarely studied the math competition. They were typically sickly, bespectacled, and hunched over. But Jeff and James were different, confident. I think they expected to win. Their coach, on the other hand, was a little nerdy, but I left that day with a lasting impression. I wanted what these guys had, a St. Mark's education. On the first day of class, fall 1986, I was sitting in Mr. Cochero's class and flying high. You see, Mr. Cochero was that nerdy coach, and he was all mine. He looked at me curiously. "What are you doing here?" Mr. Cochero's booming voice startled me. I think it belongs to a bigger person. He led me down the long corridors of the math and science quadrangle. I remember being intimidated by this word, quadrangle, and I call myself a mathematician. We walked in silence. Was I in trouble? He marched me directly into Maxine Kamak's room, where the advanced geometry class was taught. This is where you belong. Throughout my experience at St. Mark's, I've always had the feeling of being looked after, protected, taken care of, even in classes where my performance was below average. For instance, French and English were challenges, and at least in that first year, C's were a mainstay on my grading reports. Comments, those 2-by-6-inch pieces of paper that contained a letter grade, and so much more. We all remember the personalized notes written by the instructors to students and their parents. For a public school kid like me, this was a device of incredible powers. Powers of praise, encouragement, acknowledgement, rebuke, scorn, doom. Comments were calls to action, initiators of self-reflection, forebearers of imminent and escalating problems, guidelines for corrective measures, pats on the back, and unlike grades, unequivocal. Pardon the colloquialism, but comments kept it real. Comments were manifestations of teachers' dedication to both their craft and to our individual growth, and I've kept a few over the years as reminders. After my freshman year of college, Curtis Smith invited me to join a fledgling St. Mark's summer program intended to expose public middle school kids, predominantly minorities, to the rigors and joys of St. Mark's. The program exposed counselors like myself to the possible teaching careers. Curtis took his role of teaching guru seriously. Lectures on his pedagogical approach were replete with feel-good phrases. His goals to elicit aha moments and to raise the students' academic goosebumps were hokey. I know. Nevertheless, I found myself engulfed by the job and somewhat overwhelmed. I gained a new respect for teachers and their awesome responsibilities that summer. By the way, I was not invited to teach the following summer. I began to understand why some people teach, though, seeing those light bulbs go off when confusion was replaced by comprehension, comprehension by appreciation, and appreciation by mastery. Teaching has lasting rewards for both instructor and pupil, forever binding the two in a tradition older even than history itself. At the conclusion of the 6 weeks, to complete their St. Mark's experiences, I wrote each of my students a note on a makeshift comment card. I visited the program a year later, and one of my students, upon seeing me, quoted his comments verbatim. Ultimately, Curtis, I was the one with goosebumps. Marlon Brown, Bobby Walker, and I were good friends in high school and remain so. Many of you know them. During our St. Mark's days, we were accomplished athletes. Well, those two were. We also used to carpool together from our respective Oak Cliff homes. We went separate ways, however, when it came to academics. Beyond the important reprieve from classes in Mr. Turner's protective print shop lair, our school day schedules had few overlaps. We rarely shared our academic stories back then. And there's another key difference between our experiences. After college, they both returned to St. Mark's as instructors, and from my understanding, they left lasting impressions here. I have to admit, I was surprised and proud and jealous. I knew that as students, we were each having positive experiences, if disjoint, but I didn't realize that St. Mark's, a key component of the glue of our friendship, created such an appreciation in them that they were called to return. I was close to following in their footsteps, at least until I understood better the typical St. Mark's teacher workload. I chose instead to live vicariously through them. Other classmates have returned to St. Mark's to teach, including our current head of upper school, Chris Gunnan. I believe that in many ways we are all called upon to return to St. Mark's a portion of what we have reaped. I am so proud of my classmates and the many other alumni who have found different ways to serve St. Mark's. You'll never catch Doc Hartzell trying to raise a goosebump. He was too busy striking fear into the hearts of his Western civilization class and coaxing the hairs on his neck to lie flat. Never quite resulting to profanity, at least in English, Doc's tirades about our lack of preparedness were legendary and frequent. Doc's quizzes were obscure, his expectations seemingly unattainable, and his energy infectious. He demanded perfection and willed us slowly but progressively toward erudition. And just when we thought we had Doc and his quizzes figured out, he'd raise the bar further, we'd let him down again, and the verbal lashing would follow. We loved it. The man's teaching style, if not his basketball game, was crafty. Doc holds the belief, and I share it, that the greatest aspiration of a teacher is the generation of peers. The greatest aspiration of a teacher is the generation of peers. And for instructors of Doc and other St. Mark's teachers' caliber, this was a tall order, and I am still trying to measure up as an instructor. I understand that Doc has moved on to an administrator's role, and I hope Doc has, as the kids say, chilled out a bit. J.T. Sutcliffe masquerades as a calculus teacher and meta teacher. She helps others learn the art of teaching. What she really is a master storyteller. Her class senior year was like a fireside chat. J.T. would craft stories with an occasional multicolored illustration that made math self-evident. But mind you, it was senior year, and my math textbook was collecting dust. One could say that I was taking a premature victory lap. Plus, with JT's care, mastery, and intimate understanding of what it took for students to get it, sitting in on her lectures was sufficient. Retention instantaneous. Apparently aware of my passive class-taking strategy, JT requested a meeting. In the sternest demeanor she could muster, JT chastised me for my brazen senioritis, that I was doing myself a disservice and that I would need the skill of being able to read math text and understand it without the help of an interpreter as herself. Oh, how right she was. I missed class soon thereafter, and to this day, I still have difficulties with that day's topic, the chain rule. I'll be here for a few days, and hopefully I'll get to sit in JT's class for a refresher course. My job as a professor requires that I read and referee mathematical papers that have been submitted to journals. JT, how did you know? Attending St. Mark's was made possible because of the school's generous financial aid policy. And my understanding is that the percentage of students receiving financial aid has increased to 18%. It pleases me to see that St. Mark's remains committed to a diversity of social economic status, race, culture, religion, ideas, and talents among its student body and workforce, to everyone's benefit. Each summer, we would receive a financial aid package for the upcoming year. The aid package for that victory lap year was not as significant as it had been in previous years. Understandably, this caused some consternation in the Jennings household. My two sisters were both in college, and a tough decision loomed. My father and I were in favor of holding out for a slightly better offer. As if I was some athlete, professional athlete. My mother's wiser head prevailed, and we tightened our belts, didn't we? In the interim, the Hartzells made an amazing proposition. They offered to adopt me so that I would be the child of a St. Mark's employee, reducing the cost considerably. Given my appetite back then, I'm sure they expected my birth parents to continue feeding me. We didn't take them up on the offer. Neither did we forget the incredible display of generosity. Dedicated, nurturing, challenging, personable, empathizing, and professional, the people of St. Mark's represent what is best in education, and life for that matter. They serve as tangible evidence that excellence is indeed a reasonable and attainable goal. It's a shame that most children do not enjoy such resources. It's also a shame when such resources are not fully appreciated. I have to admit, for a while, I resented St. Mark's for that financial aid episode. And I'm sure we all have had events, big and small, that have left rifts between us and St. Mark's and our St. Mark's classmates. I suggest responding to this frustration in constructive ways. For instance, I make modest contributions with the hope that St. Mark's' inability to respond to financial hardships among its students are fewer in number now than they were in 1989. We should remember that St. Mark's belongs to all of us, and its future is in our hands to mold as we see fit. I encourage you all to get involved. Give career advice to students, or make yourself available otherwise as a resource to the school. Contact your classmates and bury old hatchets. Life's too short. Recent untimely deaths, in particular that of Dwight Coleman, class of 1975, who played a pivotal role in my matriculation to Princeton, have made me acutely aware of important people in my life. In my parents' church, they have a saying: whenever they recognize someone for extraordinary service, they emphasize the need to establish a habit of acknowledging those around us while these individuals are still in our presence. The saying goes, and perhaps you share it, that we should give them flowers while they still can smell them. To those who have shared their exceptional gifts to St. Mark's over the years, from all of us who have benefited in ways we have yet to even realize, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you, St. Mark's. Thank you to my family, teachers, coaches, and friends who have impacted me so profoundly. I will always strive to do my part to uphold the values and lessons you have taught me. Thank you. And now, please turn your attention to the monitors for a video tribute.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Eugene McDermott headmaster, Arnold Holtberg.
Seth, congratulations to the Alumni Board and Alumni Association for this spectacular event. This is just almost unimaginable, isn't it, Brock, that 10 years ago we would fill this hall with this many loyal, caring people who are devoted to this school. So congratulations. And Mike, thank you very much for your good work. Congratulations to all the award winners. Brock, to you for what you've gotten started and what you've kept going. Jake, for your contributions and for what you'll do in the future. Nancy, Corey, and Michael, thank you for being colleagues who push the boundaries of learning for kids and make sure that our boys' experience is as full as it might be. And thanks to David Deeney and his team for once again supporting an absolutely first-rate event for this community. Thank you very much. Finally, thanks also to the Alumni Association for creating an evening where we are doing what seems most appropriate, most fitting, and just very, very special, celebrating the people who make this place hum at a level of excellence that is the envy of many others. There are many things that distinguish St. Mark's as a great school, as we've noted tonight. And Otis, I admire your eloquence, and I value your loyalty. You spoke volumes. Thank you very, very much. But people are what make this school what it is. The other day in a conversation, we were talking about this spectacular campus of ours, which is on the verge of becoming even more spectacular. And my response was, the facilities are critical. They are very important, and I appreciate them very much. But without the right boys and the right adults, the facilities are only hollow shells. Scott Gonzalez, our campus dean, likes to tell a story, perhaps reflecting on my bona fides as a teacher. But during his first year at the school, he was in the corridor of Davis Hall outside my office, where I teach my section of 9th grade Ancient and Medieval History and Religion. And for some reason, the class hour had started, but the boys were still in the corridor, I'm sure making no noise whatsoever. And Scott came upon them as a new faculty member, addressing them, saying, "Boys, what are you doing out here, and where is your teacher?" One of the boys responded by saying, "Sir, we don't have a teacher, we have the headmaster." Oftentimes when I travel on planes, I make it a habit to bring papers to correct, and my seatmates will often ask me what I do, and I say that I teach boys history, and that is what I do. And what I value so much about our teachers and all the others who work at St. Mark's, because after all, anyone who works in a school is a teacher, whether in the classroom, on the sports field, in the dining room. We all teach valuable lessons to our charge. But what I value so much is that our teachers have always cared about our boys growing up to become thoughtful, caring, contributing men, the evidence of which we see before us tonight. We who teach choose, or maybe we're chosen, to pursue this vocation, not for fame and glory, and certainly not for riches. We teach because we care. And teaching is darned hard work. But it's not really work, it's a calling. And I value that in all my colleagues, past and present. As I stand here tonight, I'm reminded of my experiences as a boy growing up. And If by Rudyard Kipling, if you can keep your head when all about you, and so forth. My 6th grade teacher gave me the gift of If, copies of which I have at home and in my office. A poem that means a great deal in my life. The great liberator, Simón Bolívar, My 5th grade teacher gave me that gift. I can get by in France using French because I had wonderful teachers in high school. And I set my sights higher as a 16-year-old because my crusty, old school, even for 1964 high school football coach uttered a couple of poignant phrases to me. And I think of our teachers in that regard and the difference they've made in the lives of our men. Those teachers who are recommended for who's who among America's teachers because they have touched their students' lives in profound and indelible ways. The teacher recently invited to attend a major function at a very prominent university at the recommendation of one of our boys because of the difference that teacher made. How about roaming the corridors of St. Mark's at 7:15 a.m. on any school day to see classrooms with teachers and boys together, working on the day's assignments, attending any student event and bumping into faculty and staff supporting their kids, listening to teachers discuss their students at grade level meetings, offering important insights aimed at helping boys grow, and knowing that all practical matters at the school will be handled perfectly by staff members who are devoted to this place and its commitment to excellence. What has always separated St. Mark's from the rest of the pack? Quality. We've seen evidence tonight. We've heard it in Otis's remarks. You've reminded one another. But quality. A few years ago, I was at a conference of the International Boys' School Coalition in Perth, Western Australia. And I was touring the facilities of the host school with our host, the Australian head, and another American head of a very prominent American boys' school. As we toured, we went into a science class, and my Australian colleague introduced my American colleague and said, "Here is so-and-so from such and such school, an extraordinary school." And then he turned to me and he said, "Here's Mr. Holtberg from St. Mark's School of Texas, an even more extraordinary school." So our reputation exceeds the boundaries of even this country and continent. Qualities: mentor, friend, expert, the passionate, character, and characters, many of whom are in this room and make every day more colorful and have made every day more colorful at St. Mark's. Loyalty and longevity. Do you know that at this time we have 39 faculty members who have spent 20 or more years at St. Mark's? That's pretty remarkable. And tonight, 5 men are among us who have given 40 or more years of active service to the school. And I'd like them to stand for a moment as I call the names. Arthur Douglas, Tom Adams, Michael Bennett, J.J. Connolly, Ken Owens. This is the school. Gentlemen, thank you for your leadership and for carrying the ideals of St. Mark's in your persons. Last week, I interviewed a candidate for a position at the school. In his cover letter, he had made reference to Paul Whedon, J.J. Connolly, and other elements of his St. Mark's experience. Well, I decided during the interview that I would test not only his memory, but his relationship to the school, to make sure he was telling the whole truth. So I asked the gentleman, "Do you remember any poetry from 7th grade?" And he quickly broke into recitation and recited a couple of poems for me that he remembered from 20-some-odd years ago. That's a testament to something enduring. And I know that collectively and individually, our teachers forever have made that kind of difference, had that kind of effect on our students. The evidence is here tonight. And I think of myself more as a teacher than anything else. I remember the days in my 20s when I couldn't imagine what administrators really did. Why anyone would want to be a department head, a division head, or head of school. That seemed impossible to me. And in my office, I have a scroll that was given to me during my Hong Kong days. It's in Chinese calligraphy. And loosely translated, it says, Teacher of Teachers. It's one of the most meaningful gifts I've ever received. And I'm very proud of our graduates, and thank you for being here. And I'm proud of our teachers, past and present, for making this school what it is and providing me the great opportunity to lead an institution that is renowned across this country, but even more important than being renowned, produces tremendous results every day in the lives of boys. I truly feel that I'm the luckiest man in the world to be among you. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you've enjoyed the evening. Congratulations to you all. Drive home safely, please.